Looking for a fast project that only takes one quilt block? Or maybe you're new to sewing and want to work on your sewing skills while making a useful gift. In this video, I'll show you how to make a quick baby receiving blanket. It's an easy project for beginners and requires about a yard of 2 different fabrics. I place batting inside this quilt, but it also works up nicely in flannel with no batting. If you don't have a 6-inch quilt block to use, a square from the backing fabric works just as well, or you could check out our video series on how to make pinwheel blocks. The cutting sizes and layout for this quilt can be downloaded at learnhowtoquilt.com or email me at learnquilting@gmail.com. You can easily adjust this to make a larger or smaller project depending on your block size. You just set your block on point and add borders. Before cutting these pieces, I washed and pressed my fabric. I used this guide as a layout, and now I'm ready to sew. First, I'll sew my 6-inch square on point. I'll press each triangle in half to identify the midpoint. If your square does not have a midpoint, then you'll have to also press this in half to find those midpoints. I've lined up the middles, and now I'm ready to sew. I think it works best when the triangles are on top of the block like this. This edge of the triangle is all biased and it stretches a lot. If I put it on the bottom, my feed dogs will be pulling at it and causing it to stretch more. So on top, I can keep an eye on it and gently guide it through the machine. I'll be sewing a 1/4-inch seam. Start with a little scrap of fabric so those tips don't get caught up in there. Finish up with another scrap of fabric. I like to sew opposing triangles first. After sewing, I press the 2 triangles to the outside edge, and now I'm ready to add the last 2 in the same manner. I've pressed this block, and now I need to square it up to a 9-inch block. I like to lay out my quilt before moving on. I'll sew this row next, and then I'll press to the outside edges. Next, I'll add each one of these sections. I usually try not to use pins, but when I'm sewing these long strips like this and this, I have a tendency to start pulling on them as they go through my sewing machine. I like to pin just to make sure that the top and the bottom pieces stay lined up. After sewing, I press my seams, and here's my completed top. I'm ready to put together my quilt sandwich and quilt. I've used straight line quilting to echo the shape of this block. I added binding, and now I have a receiving blanket for a gift for that new baby. When using flannel, I don't like to use batting or a piece block. I also like to round off the corners using a rounded object like this plate to mark the curve. It's an extra step, but I think it looks nicer, and it's easier to turn this piece inside out because there are no corner points. You'll follow the same cutting and layout directions. After putting right sides together and pinning, I stitched a 1/2-inch seam around the outside edge, making sure to leave about 4 to 5 inches open for turning inside out. I turned it, pressed the edges, and then top stitched about 3/8 to 1/4 of an inch all the way around, making sure to catch the opening so I didn't have to hand stitch it closed. Here's another completed baby blanket. For more quilt projects, visit learnhowtoquilt.com. Please share our patterns and videos with your friends. Thanks.